I'd like to start with a temperature check mechanism. So anybody who doesn't know temperature check, you put your hand on your head and you can move it up and down. This might be a lot, and this might be a little. So let's just do a check of the temperature check if it works for people. How are you? This is great. This is like, oh my God, what am I doing here? So this is like, how are you doing? All right, okay, most people are able to use this mechanism for signaling. This is a signaling mechanism for our DAO. It's great. Not everybody is able to do that. You can use your left hand if you're having a problem with your right hand. It's all good. Okay, so how long have you been in Web3? I just want to get a sense of who's here. This is like OG, or or I bought pizza with Bitcoin. This is like I have no idea why I'm even here. Wow, we got quite a variety. Okay, I'm gonna have some of this is gonna be for beginners. Okay, how many of this is like how much do you belong to a DAO? This is like I belong to 27 DAOs, which is the highest number I've ever heard. And this is I don't know what a DAO is, or I have an idea, but I'm not in one. Most people may be in. Okay, and how familiar are you with the DAO technology? This is the technology part of it. Oh, some of you actually know quite a bit, some not at all. And how familiar are you with, how much experience do you have with hierarchical organizations where there's a boss? And, like I've been years in these corporate environments, this is like never had a job. Okay, a lot of you have heard of these things. Hello. And how about non-hierarchical organization? This is, I belong to an anarchist collective, and this is like, yeah, I mean, I've got a family. It's a little anarchistic or whatever, Okay. Some familiarity. Okay. All right. How about this statement? The best part of the conference is the sage on the stage. I just love to be lectured to. And the best part of the conference is the sage on the stage. People, how about the best part of the conference is the other people I meet? All right, some people are a little antisocial, but most of you think that's better. So good, I'm gonna try and do this workshop style and maybe you'll get to talk to maybe the people around you a little bit about some of the stuff we're gonna be talking about, rather than doing it sage on stage, because now that I've done a temperature check. Okay, now this is, the next one is, I love yes-no voting. Oh yeah, just yes and no is the only choices I want. And this is like, oh, I'm not sure the yes-no voting is great. A lot of people have lost the temperature check. So why is everybody's DAO using, there's one person who loves yes-no voting, even though we just did this thing. And the rest of you already have some doubts about whether yes and no are the only options that you want in your DAO. So I hope that was a good demonstration of why yes and no are not always the greatest. I have an agenda, right? Yeah, let's see what my agenda is. Well, we did the temperature check. We're going to talk about the meaning of life. We're going to talk about world domination, and then maybe we'll talk about the DAOs. So why don't we just start right out with the meaning of life? And, so the first thing when you're talking about a DAO, you should be asking yourself is, why am I doing this in the first place? Like, what is the project about? Think about it. What problem are you solving? For whom and why now? And why do you want a DAO? So if you're here, I'd love to hear from at least one person out there. Why do you want a DAO, and what problem are you solving? You can pick whichever of these speak to you. Anybody? You're here. This is an hour of your precious time. Why'd you come? How about why'd you come? And nobody wants to. Okay, yeah, go ahead. So why do you want it as a DAO?
I guess one of the reasons is to share responsibility. Maybe $100,000 which I got 10 people are in country, and then 50 people, only between the 10 people.
Who else? Why do you have a DAO? What are you looking at this? What are you doing here? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, the hierarchical organization was really great in the 19th century, and I think the technology is getting something better than this hierarchical organization.
great. In what way? And what would you like to?
I'm going to ask you to repeat the question for the stream, or we
Oh,
can
yeah,
hand out the
sure.
mic
So
that the streams, so that the questions are also recorded.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, handing out the mic would be good. It'd be good for me too. But what he said was he feels that in the previous century, the hierarchical organization was great, and now we can use this for something better. I'd love to hear what your definition of better is, because, I mean, they've been telling us life is getting better and better. So what do you, when you say better, what type of better would be better? He probably wants a mic to tell me what's better. Maybe somebody else will tell me what's better too. Everybody has an idea of better. Do you have an idea of better? You don't have to.
I wanted to say more efficient.
More efficient? His legs aren't working well. Just, I'll have to repeat you. Yeah.
Sure, I wanted to say more efficient.
More efficient. And efficient at, because look, I could be more efficient at, like getting the supply chain to work cheaper, or I could be more efficient at making sure everybody gets more food. So those are two different efficiencies. So what do you mean by efficient? And I'm doing this because it's really, you get it, right? We're all like, we all want a better world. And we all want a more efficient world, but we all want value, but what's value? And we all want less hierarchical. Like what you're expressing is a lot of what I hear. But underneath that is something like, then we form a DAO together, and we've used these words like value, efficient, better, and we all think we're aligned on our objectives. And actually underneath that, it's like some completely different definition of better and efficient. So what is efficient for you?
I mean, I'm answering because I'm holding the mic, but...
yeah, but also because I don't want to just stand here and talk like I know everything.
Yeah,
even
sure,
though
but
I do,
I'm happy to hand over. So for me, it's the second type, like to create a new ways of economic coordination. That's what I mean by saying more efficient. And I think we can do that with blockchain technology.
Cool, awesome. And yeah, anybody who feels impelled to answer any of these things, certainly, yeah, great. Because I'm going to have another question for whoever was smart enough to raise their hand. Yeah.
Yeah, I also wanted to chime in. I'm no expert at all, but I think what you could also denominator of efficient would be transparent. Oh, yeah. So
Faster iterations,
Okay.
more efficiency, more feedback. Great.
Yes.
And one of the things he also said was he would like better economic coordination. Who here has a good idea of what they mean when they say economic coordination? What would be better about better economic coordination?
I would say more winners,
More winners.
less centers of aggregation and extractive models and systems. And to answer to your previous question, I think I would love to see more meaningful systems in terms of helping biodiversity thriving and flourishing on the planet, and also work on consciousness. And yeah.
That's perfect. So that's great. And you're going to hear a lot of those same answers from people, but you can see that when I start drilling down on what do those words mean, it's very helpful. It's very helpful. And when you start to think about economic systems, it's really great that you brought the environment in here, because we're very dependent on the environment for our economic systems. And we are yeah, it's a little bit weird. Yeah, exactly.
I know you mean the same.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
I wanted
It's
to-
not like I'm on a planet, right? Like I am part of the planet is what you're pointing to. And so when you think about, oh yeah, great, we got somebody else talking. This is great. I'm not
I
gonna
think
have to
that's
talk the whole hour.
that's a wonderful segue as well, because one of the things that I've been thinking about also is basically the coexistence of the different living beings on the planet, and basically being able to give organisms that don't communicate with us humans in human language, let's put it that way, basically, a voice, and trying to do that. So there's some interesting projects basically around putting sensors in the environment, and then translating that into decisions and so on. And so you can, by automating that, you can then basically let them participate in the decision making, or at least provide information for decision making as well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of air, and it's just like one of my favorite things. And so, yeah, measuring for the environment is really important. If you look at all the statistics about how much better things have been getting, they have been, but if you look at air quality, water quality, time spent with grandma, and if you ask the monkeys and the tigers if things have been getting better, they may disagree with, the technical optimists that say everything is getting better. So this is great. And so that's really what we're thinking about when we think about ecological systems. Yes.
Maybe I will represent the contrarian
I
opinion.
love that. Oh, this is great. I'm going to talk less.
I'm here to learn more about DAOs in sense how they can be effective, because in my experience they are usually not very effective. And the problem I have with DAOs is that in some cases people are deciding about things they don't really understand, which is natural. We cannot really understand everything, and that's why we have some people who are experts for something, and because it's how we in our past basically work with our economy. We developed experts which produce some things for us, and we hire or purchase their products, because we cannot handle everything. So I think that DAOs can have some use cases, for example, in culture institutions and non-profit institutions, but they are not answer for everything. So.
All right, awesome. I'm already finding out that the other people, instead of on the stage, there seems to be empirical evidence for this now. I've got cool people in the room. So yeah, exactly. And so we start to understand that the ways that DAOs so far have been working is slightly failure. And so hopefully and this is why I didn't start with DAO tooling, right? I haven't started with what's a DAO so far and how's it going so far, because we have a good story of how it's going so far. And somebody today gave me a 4-letter word for how it's going so far. And that's 5 years, which is an eternity in technology. I've been in the DAO field since the DAO, which was a big fail, as we all know. And we weren't even sure we were going to keep using the word. The fail was so enormous. And here we are 5 years later, and it's gotten not a lot better. Fewer rugs, percentage-wise, than 100% for the first DAO, but, still lots of rugs, lots of DAOs. All right. Life. But you start to get a feel of why am I doing this? I ask it first, because so many people come to me like, I want a DAO, and I'm like, well, why? What do we got? Oh, good reasons. All right. So these are good reasons that you would have a DAO as it's designed today. It's not the only reason you'd have a decentralized autonomous organization, but for a DAO so far, if you want to avoid legal ownership of something, a DAO is a great way of doing that. Aave is an example of that. I know many other examples of if the treasury is a shared treasury, I can somehow not dox myself, or dox myself, but it's not me, or all of us decide together to have as much accountability. It's really right now only good for operations, but I'll give you an exception, which is really interesting. Because one of the problems with DAOs is, if you're not holding crypto, how do I distribute you money? And if my clients aren't paying me in crypto, I still need to do that. And so there's some part of the centralized world touching my DAO. But I'm part of a group called Savimbo who's working in the rainforest of Colombia. And they're trying to work with the indigenous people, which is really next to what you said, which is why I'm telling this particular story. So this is it's a choose your own adventure discussion here. And so this is part of the adventure. And so my colleague who went into the rainforest spoke to the shamans, and they said nobody can own the rainforest. Nobody can own land. Land cannot be owned. It's like part of the planet. And so she used a DAO for that. Now we use a DAO, and now that actually solved the problem for them by having a DAO as part of the ownership structure. It's not the only ownership. They also have legal ownership structures, but that solved a problem for them. And then they have a voting DAO about when they receive biodiversity or carbon credits. It goes into it doesn't go into crypto. It's still in a fiat account, but it's held in escrow. And then they all take a vote every month of what to do with it. Should we build a women's shelter? Should we buy some more of the land for the DAO? Should we distribute it all evenly among us? Should we all give it all to the shaman, which, by the way, is frequently their choice? But that's none of my business as a white person, right? Like, if that's what they want, they're like, we give all the money to the chief. It's like, okay, that's their vote. And so they get together, they vote, and then that exports a spreadsheet to the escrow provider, and then the escrow provider drops the Colombian monetary system they use there into each person's bank account. And actually, they did it in a way, they still have to trust the company, right, the Savimbo and the escrow holder, but they're using a DAO in order to actually create some of the things that we've been talking about. You can hear how this fits into what a lot of you guys are talking about. It's protecting nature, it's speaking for people who can't speak for themselves, it's avoiding ownership. It's very weird, like, we didn't think avoiding legal ownership is such a great thing, but for these people, there's no way to talk about I own the land. They just, like, it's not, yeah, they speak Spanish so they can say it, but in their own language, they can't say that. So it's very interesting. No individual corruption of the treasury. There may or may not be stories of, somebody being given the money and then not distributing it to the people. And it's really good for fundraising. There's a lot of hype and there's a lot of funny money in this industry and there are a lot of rugs. I have nothing against that. I got my optimism airdrop. I don't know about you. And I did sell it before the crash. And like, I don't know where that came from. It was like magic money. I was like, oh, I could get a blah, blah, blah. That's nice. I have nothing against that. It's not like the money in Wall Street is distributed to the right people who are the best people in the universe. It's like, okay. So fundraising is good, and we're moving our money around between each other, and we're trying to create a competitive system to the existing system. And so far, what we've created is like money that inflates faster. Good for us. Let's just do it, good things with it. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. You don't have to agree with me also. If you disagree with anything, please say so. It makes it more fun.
But in terms of fundraising, just doesn't it hurt the equality of participants? Because someone can donate more money and receive more DAO tokens. And when we need to make a decision, just like if I paid more, I have more voting in this case.
Right.
Because I don't like the fundraising goal for the DAO, actually, just like.
Yeah. You don't like plutocracy?
Sorry?
You don't like plutocracy?
Just, I cannot say just like about plutocracy. I'm
Yeah,
telling
no,
about
but
the idea
yeah.
creating DAO for fundraising,
Yeah.
because it hurts equality, just like.
It's hard to make the crypto's reputation worse than it already is. I mean, like, look, you've got like the Assange DAO, right? Like, this is a perfect example, right? They raised all this money for Julian Assange's release, and then people started complaining that it all went to his brother and his lawyer. Even that's what it said on the website it was going to do with it, and it was like $50 million, right? Is that good or bad? I don't know. If you raised, like ClimaDAO raised a lot of money and gave it to carbon credits, and then they rubbed, like, was that good or bad? Was it a net good, a net bad? I find it hard to judge these things, right? And when I talk to young founders, which I do, and I'm not so young, look, why am I here, right? Like, why am I talking about digital democracy, DAOs, and non-hierarchical systems? I mean, I have offspring. I can't call them children because they got like non-childlike all of a sudden. Maybe it happened over time, but and one day my daughter says to me, like, look, I'm never going to be able to afford a mortgage like you and Dad. Look at the inflation rate. Look at the average salary. And I was really, really embarrassed about the world that I left to people. And that's why I'm standing up here. And so if some people are like, we're going to do this rug and we're going to buy a little island and we're going to grow our own food, or we're going to buy a mansion and live it up and do a lot of speed or cocaine, like, I can't blame any young person who does that right now. Like, it's my own damn fault that these people have no future and they're buying Dogecoin. I can't have I'd like to have a judgment about it, but I lived in the generation where we got in tubes and we flew across the world. I'm not sure that my grandchildren will be able to get in a metal tube and fly across the world. So is it bad? I mean, people think of it as bad, and they think of money laundering as bad. I mean, I think of arms trafficking as bad, but then you have a war where there's lots of selling. I just can't have a judgment about it anymore. Yeah, you don't like it. Yeah, like, yeah, I don't like it. I wish I lived in a world where I could feel really like, yeah, we should stop those people, but I don't. Yeah. Anyway, so that was more about the meaning of life. All right, next, we're behind ourselves. Bad to have a DAO. Okay, now, if you want to make a profit, isn't for you, because the definition of profit is if you own it, you get all the money for yourself. Now, if you're going to rug, and you're going to raise money and rug, or you're going to create a plutocracy or oligarchy, then you could still have a DAO, say it's a DAO, the people with the most tokens vote, and you could still centralize profit, but generally speaking, not the best for that. If you're doxxed, if you're American and doxxed, you got to be careful. These things are not so, and the more we're actually creating freedom, the more they'll come after you. It's not like if I'm doing good stuff and saving the rainforest, like the stories that I can't tell you because I have an NDA about how investors have treated this rainforest project I was telling you about. It's like, it's shocking. The entire system in Colombia and the relationships between the US and Colombia have been set up to take this forest away from these people. And so what's legal, not legal, like good we're doing for the world, the more the existing system, we're like going against a system which is already constructed. It's not a conspiracy, it's just like the wheels are turning and the momentum is going that way, and if we're like turn this way, we're gonna get, gonna be under the bus, like Coinbase. Like why are they throwing Coinbase under the bus? This is why. If you want control, you don't want DAO. They hate us for that. We don't have a community, actually. One of the things that we see in DAOs today is people trying to bring in people with airdrops and little tokens, like we give you here's a biscuit, vote, 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 I'll give you a biscuit for voting. I'm like, I'm not a dog. Anyway, but if you don't really have a community that cares about the thing, and again, you could DAO that I told you in Colombia, which is a great example, there are people there living in community, whatever definition of community that you might have, no shit, these people live in a community, right? Like they share their food, they share their beds, they share their hunting things that they share. That's really, they take care of each other, it's a community. And so for this organization called Great, their idea is great. They want to create a parallel World Wide Web with the DNS. Not what I meant when I said DNS run by a DAO, because that is very, not everybody speaks Enginese. But anyway, yeah, so they want the domain name system to be run by a DAO so that governments can't censor websites. Some of you may or may not be aware of how censored the website. It's a great idea, and that's what you would want. You would want the DNS to like run by a DAO. But now that they're at a stage of community or stage of maturity where they got to bring people in. And so they're bringing people into the DAO with these like little airdroppy things. They're not airdrops, but little reward systems for tweeting out, and you get this many tokens for, you know, whatever. And it's, are those people really the people in China who are censored, or Russia, or Ukraine, or wherever it is, Indonesia? Like those community members aren't their actual community, but they need it at least to get the and so if you don't really have a community, you've got a hard start. They have very good funding, and a lot of course, a lot of wealthy people holding Bitcoin are very interested in this parallel network. Yes?
Yeah, I agree with most of these things. I think what we have learned since the DAO is that a DAO is good for managing a public good, a community, and so on. A DAO is not efficient to build a product, right? So when you want to build, or when I want to build a real product, which is focused for me to make money with it, to go on the market, it's not efficient with a DAO. If I have a community where I have to connect a lot of people, and where I have to manage a community, then a DAO is very effective. It matches with most of the points from you, but this is our experience. Yeah, if you build a product, make a company.
Yeah.
If you manage a community or a public good, make a DAO.
Yeah, if you've got to get something done, right? And it's like, okay, we all got to get out there and harvest the potatoes before they go bad in the field, and there's a deadline on it. you know, like everybody do what you feel like might not work. But product building, or we've got to prioritize. But part of that has to do with the construction of it, and we're but yeah, but it's really inefficient. Bankless uses Wonderverse, and it's really interesting because there's a lot of tasks that nobody picked up. So if there's no deadline, it's fine. If there's a deadline, it's like nobody picked up the task. So, yep, so that's right. And I'm not sure how good for managing like large distributed things because we haven't seen that yet. I just also want you, as you're assessing where you and what solve cycles and Creative Commons slide even. So the idea is that when your project is born is when all you get. Now when it's a toddler, it starts to work on, it still kind of wets it. You get a little bit of funding and you have a few. After that, it's a teenage. That's like a teenager stage. Then they're a young adult, they're like, oh, grow up a bit. It's an adult. Like you keep that cash cow and you're like, you start to be a company where baby thing or a toddler, it's like, whereas there's been a long, there's kibbutz movements, all kinds of things. And that's and a using lyrics, that kind of thing. We have a history to build on. And so a lot of the experiments I see with DAOs, I wonder why you're experimenting. I don't know, where do you think we are as an industry and what do people think? Life cycle, where are we in the life cycle? I mean, we're definitely not babies, although we do seem to still wet our pants, so yeah, we're little teenagers. We're still teenagers, like we're running, we're gonna do this, and yeah, so it's useful. And one of the things about a teenager is that you expect him to have done something and clean up his own damn room, and we don't. Some, like moving to proof of stake was kind of like a teenager to be like, oh, I should clean up my room. Most of the industry is not cleaning up our room, and that's why everybody is like, what have you produced so far? Like, you're even getting good grades, really. And 5 years is an eternity. So again, this is just to kind of give you an idea. And then the global economy is like, it's on life support. The global economy is on life support. It's like, we're going to close Credit Suisse on a Sunday. When have you seen a Swiss banker working on a Sunday? Like, what was that? The thing is, it's on life support. And we're the only thing between, for most people, this is the only thing between that disaster and, you know, like absolute authoritarianism, totalitarianism, tracking everything, not just tracking, but programmable money that the government gives you. In this room, yay. I'm back to the meaning of life again. Okay. So maybe it would be cool if you met some people in this room and maybe kind of get into a group of 3 people about the project you're working on. Hopefully you're working on something if you came to this room, or the DAO you belong to, and maybe sit with 4 people and alternatives. What can history tell us about this? Like if I'm working in the area of rainforest, how your credits and the really bad, like right now Vera is in the names of the things hopefully in your industry. Meet some cool people. Maybe I'll give you, let me see what the time for this. Maybe like 10 minutes, just talking to a group of 3 or 4 people about like, what are you building it, and how is like, I know I haven't talked about DAOs at all, but like if you don't know this stuff and you haven't thought about this stuff, then you won't know what structure you want. Is that okay with people? I'm going to do a yes/no vote now. Well, I'm going to do it. How much is like, wow, it'd be cool to talk in groups, or can you just get to DAOs now? So like, it'd be cool to talk in groups. Can you just get to DAOs now? All right, get to DAOs. All right, here we go, get to DAOs. All right, so first thing is membership levels. So I did to about community. Products, and we airdrop them. It's like, oh, community, a lot of money, and I gave how much domain squatting. Answer. Should anybody watch? That's a very different DAO. It's like, okay, maybe it's more like jury duty. Maybe it's anybody who built their own website. Those are very different types of community members, and this is a relief because it means that your Treasury DAO members might be very different from your members of something else that you're doing, right? And then that all, because a lot of people are like, I don't want a plutocracy. I hate that. I hate that you moved here. I hate that. Like, Okay. So that's the first, like what membership levels. Also, you have to be careful about because there's no correlation between the number of tokens you have and what you know about code security. There's no correlation between the number of lines of code you've read. System would be useful. What? I'm closer? Oh, this is not good. Oh, here we go. This is, yeah, great. This is a correlation. This is sort of the make our bricks. You'll notice that bricks aren't the only thing holding this together, but the bricks are these decisions. Like we get to these moments of decisions, and again, you want to categorize those. Like what types of decisions do we have to make together? Is it about the funding? Is it about prioritize? Is it about how to market this? Is it about recall because it's not working and it's hurting people's health? Who makes those decisions is like there's overlap. About that, like in your DAO that you've been thinking of, what kinds of decisions are being made and how are they being made? How to allocate funds, right? That's the basic. What else is made? What features to build? That's it, huh? A lot of the decisions are invisible. So for example, how often should the vote be is a meta-governance issue. And who gets to vote and who's a member and when do we kick somebody out because they were a jerk? This is one of the biggest problems that we have today in DAOs and building community. We don't have any way to kick out people who are being jerks, who are toxic, and we have no way of labeling those jerks from time to time. And that's a they is the community fell apart. That's the other possibility. Like a lot of people left, anybody nice left, or the community completely disappeared. And we never think about those decisions, right? Okay. Now, the next thing is this investment decision, because I had somebody come to me and say, I want to make an investment decision. And you'll notice that if you say something, then I relate to your specific DAO, and if you don't, then you're just sitting here in the audience. So that's why I like interaction. Decision, investment. Usually those are three things that you really care about, and the product. That's just it, right? You'll also look at the financials. Do they make sense? Case, and usually to decision table, each one of these. And that decision table, like, why give them normal way to make the decision is not know what a decision table is? It's not. But what? So basically, it's like you write down each thing. Okay, the market, you know, startup 1, startup 2, startup 3, startup 4. I fill in a number. Oh, I think their market is like really great. It's really hot. And you put it in line. Oh, their market, maybe 3.
Excuse me. I will play.
You're going to give this, or you're taking away this thing because it's too wobbly? It's wobbly. Too wobbly. Oh, this is so much better. Better myself, too. I'm sweating even a tiny bit less. Oh, look, you're going to take electronics out of my pocket. I'm going to sweat even slightly less. Great. And so in each column, right, for market, for each company, you put how much you think they're worth. And then it'd be like product. And then you'd put how much you think they're worth. And you could have as many columns as you want. You're like their ability to deliver, you know, how popular it is. It's in countries where it's legal or it's illegal. You could have any columns you want. Make a decision that's a weight. And then you could say, the most important thing is the team. We're going to give, like, we're going to double the weight of that. So that's worth more, right? When I describe this, this could be automated for and scalable for zillions of people, right? Any of your voters could fill in a decision table instead of just do yes, no, and you'd get a much better sense of what a good decision is and why it's a good decision. And you might even get a sense of these guys could try again next time because they know that their team is weak or their product is weak, and they could make a proposal next, whatever, cycle, because they could see where they fell down in the rating system. And that would be, for your case, a better distributed decision-making that is completely scalable, completely automatable, but you can't do a yes-no contract for it. But you could have a, like, if it reaches this threshold, it's a yes. How do you know the expertise of the people who are voting? Great. Yeah. So that was the first. Like, who are my members? Am I giving them some kind of NFT that, like, you know, whatever, they're an expert? By the way, and this is a really interesting question, right? How do I have self-sovereign ID, but not even, it could even not be self-sovereign ID. I mean, you guys are here, I don't know, either you're interested in DAOs or you looked me up online. And if you looked me up online, you might have seen a bunch of videos that I did, right? And even if I were a computer and I couldn't really assess the quality of those videos, I could assess how many conferences I spoke at the last year and what topics I spoke about and how many people were sitting there, right? So you could create a reputational interpretation of publicly available data for that.
Yeah, I think it's on something like that, this guy's working on, it's based on verifiable credentials, which can be anything. Basically, you're, I don't know, university degree, but also content review.
Yeah.
So it basically shows your expertise in something, which I think can be very useful, because if you want to work on something in scale, for example, this decision table, it's very important to know if the person just fills the numbers or there's some opinion behind them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you can do a reputation interpretation. I call it reputation interpretation because I've written a paper on that, but also reputation interpretation, it could be publicly available data, it could be verifiable credentials, most of which shouldn't be on-chain. Like, you might want to have something on-chain to really validate that the credential came from the credentialing company, but you don't want on-chain, like, that much information. And I mean, the simplest information that you just don't want on chain might be whether the person is male or female or their age or something like that, because there is discrimination based on that. So how do you create verifiable credentials is something that could be private. But all of us have a lot of public data, like what did I say on a Discord channel, all of that thing. So even somebody who's not doxed could develop a reputation that could be used. And again, in your case, one of the most famous oh no, oh, it's better, okay. Was Ray Dalio created this, and they would rate each other in meetings. It was completely transparent. You had to have a certain personality to work there. And you'd be sitting in meetings, and you'd choose one parameter for every meeting. Like, I'm gonna rate people on how expert they were, or how intelligent, or how insightful, or how nice they were, or how dominating they were. And you would pick, there was a, and then everybody in the meeting, for the criteria you had chosen for that meeting, and you could choose the next one next time, you would rate everybody on that during the meeting. And then, you know, Ray would look, he's like, oh, I guess I was a little too aggressive and overbearing. And the lowest intern could rate the highest, but everybody had to live with that. And so they had it was, of course, not on chain. But then he describes a situation where they had to make a Forex decision about whether to bet on, I think it was the Deutschmark or the euro or something like that. And they noticed it was very close split among the investors. But then when they took the investors who had had the best results specifically in Forex, specifically about Europe, it was like a 75% majority of what to do in that case. And so that's not just, are you a good investor? It was like, are you a good Forex investor and do you understand the politics of the European market? And it's very nuanced. And that is all automatable. None of our DAOs have that. So you may think I'm not talking about DAOs now, but I'm talking about things that can be automated, that can be scalable, that can create a real decentralized organization. And at some point, I think I have something like, let's see if I've got, yeah, okay. We have 5 years of empirical evidence. We have quadratic funding and quadratic voting. We have delegated voting. We have this. It's a fail. 8% voter turnout is good in our industry, is amazing in our industry, okay? That's why I'm talking about completely different types of automation. I do believe in DAOs. I do believe that there are technological solutions, and I've given you some ideas of some of the technological solutions that are possible and scalable and can have anchors on chain even though some of that data shouldn't be on chain, or if you're using more of a distributed hash table, or something like a file coin for your storage instead of centralized storage, or peer-to-peer storage. You can have those as immutable records, but without having them to be public records. There are technical solutions for all of these digitized things I'm talking about, but I'm not going to talk about voting because 5 years is an eternity in technology. And it's not, I believe, just saying it's going to be delegated voting or liquid democracy, I don't think it's going to, I think 5 years is enough. Well, maybe I'm stupid. So I would love to hear if anybody disagrees. Great. I'm going to give you this thing. Or somebody with legs is, oh man, they're complete. Come on, give it the mic. I've been talking too long. There's other smart people here. She would like to say something. Oh, you're going to give them my mic. Oh, there's only one mic.
Test, test.
I'll use this one this way.
Maybe can you elaborate on this? Because if we are talking about DAOs,
None of that worked.
Okay, now let's turn it off. We'll do the other one. We'll use the other one.
okay, maybe if you can elaborate on this, because if we are talking about DAOs who has, I don't know, 10,000 people, that's probably too much, but never mind. How we can scale it? Because if there is no yes/no voting, how we can judge or summarize or somehow work with the opinions of all the people there?
Right. So there's a few things. One is, what do you mean by scaling? And what I was saying about the decision table, that's totally scalable, right? You could totally have a form that you fill out if you care. Now, you're not going to get huge voter turnout for everything. Voter turnout also, one of the reasons it failed is this guy here wants funding for his really, really cool thing, and the transaction fees are $5. And I like him, but not that much. Right? Or I have to know it's coming up for a vote. Oh, weird. I do like him that much, but I got to read a proposal, see if it's really worthwhile, think about, is it going to have a return on? And it's a lot of work, man. Sorry. Are you going to vote for my thing? If you say yes, I'll vote for your thing. Oh, okay, cool. How about you? You vote for? Okay. That's one of the reasons DAOs don't work with yes/no voting. Okay. It's like ladies' night over here.
I can see the case with the decision table, but for example, in case of Arbitrum, I don't know, there is a new feature to develop or some change in the protocol, and there is a whole bunch of ARP holders who should decide about it. So yeah, of course, we can debate on some forum, but that's not the actual voting. There is the yes/no voting. So what would be the better alternative?
Okay. So this is a good question. And again, I'm going to talk about automatable things. I'm not going to talk about, like, one of the things, why does this keep going in and out? The first thing to understand is what's a decision, right? So if I want to decide what I'm going to have for lunch today, it's going to depend on what I bought yesterday and what was on, like, what the supply chain brought to my supermarket and what was at the front and what wasn't at the bottom, and like a lot of things. And then I go to my refrigerator and say I'm deciding what to have for lunch. So the first thing you need to understand is about the nature of decisions, which is another reason for this. That's not really how decisions get made in real life, in natural systems and biological systems. If I think about a really scalable DAO, it's the cells in my body. And those cells are organized into organs, and those organs are organized into systems, and the systems are overlaid on one another. So my respiratory and my circulatory system distribute the resources in my body. And if I cut a finger over here, like automatically a whole bunch of platelets are gonna like run over there, and if that doesn't work, I'm gonna have to like go find a Band-Aid, and like it's kind of a nested overlapping system that scales. So if you start, and that's why neural net and AI is starting to look like that. So if you had a development house, and this has been done by an organization called Satalia, and they were talking about this 4 or 5 years ago, and then they disappeared off of the stage. I mean, maybe they were considering releasing this tech to us or something, I don't know, but they used to speak. And they're still working in there, an AI company, and this is how they were running a development house with 70 people, but there's no reason it wouldn't scale. You might need more GPUs than there is silicon in the universe, but okay. And how that would work is, well, you would, first of all, the feature and the developer and the project manager, those are all different decisions. So you'd have the best devs, and you would know that through heat maps. So every time you committed code or you spoke on the Slack channel, they would collect information about it, and they would know who you were talking to, and they would, and so if you're like, who's the best dev, you could look at his stats, all the stats, and you could say, who's the best at this, who's the best at that, who has the cleanest code, who's a really good communicator, and you would be able to do that through heat map. So you could find the best people for your project. If you had an idea, the same thing, I'm a sales guy and all my product people are telling me I want this on Arbitrum, whatever. So the token holders are saying they want that. But that's, again, that's a signaling system. Dr. Nick from Factory DAO is creating that kind of signaling system where we know what people are asking for. And so you've got, let's say, a clump of people who are asking for these features, and then maybe if I'm the best dev, that's gonna reward the most, and I'm gonna migrate over there, but oh, wait a second, he's the project manager, I don't really like working with him, I'm gonna move on to that project. And that all operates very similar to my circulatory system. Is this making sense to people? Is that scalable and automatable? We're just very, very far away from it. And you can see why I think that you shouldn't be starting with voting, because what I just described is pretty efficient. The idea that I'm a great proposal writer and a great ideas person, and I'm also great at security because I've thought about everything that could go wrong, and I'm a great dev, and I'm a great project manager, that's not the, right? And that's how we're allocating money now. It's absurd. But a real automated system would work like that, and it would also be self-healing because it would say, we're gonna make an MVP. Did anybody use it? And if a lot of people used it, then more developers start to come to that, just like the cut on my, more developers start to migrate towards it because people are really using it and the rewards on it. And you could do that. Yeah. Anyone else? Questions, ideas, what's coming up for you?